Hello, I'm Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times. It's Tuesday, January 13th, and welcome to a liberal's nightmare. The Republican takeover Arkansas officially occurred today. We swore in 7 state constitutional officers from governor on down. Every one of them Republican, joins a fully Republican congressional delegation, and a legislature that's 2-1 Republican. Asa Hutchinson struck mostly a ceremonial note in speeches to the legislature and then on the steps of the Capitol in his inaugural address. They were short, they were sweet, they were thematic. He pledged to work together, to seek common ground, to have a good heart. I think congressional Republicans have shown that common ground generally means voting their way and you can get along. We'll see if it's different in Arkansas or not. He wants to create jobs, he wants to cut taxes. He did reveal one specific. It will be January 22nd, when he says how he plans to proceed on the private option expansion of Medicaid under Obamacare. We'll learn if he's for its continuation, against it, for it with modifications, which seems to be the likely outcome. The big question is how many modifications, will the federal government accept them? And even then, if some of the strongest conservatives in his own party are still willing to go along, there are some that still think Obamacare under any name and any permutation is an unacceptable business expense. The other transition of most interest today, I think, was the swearing in of Leslie Rutledge as Attorney General. She began making changes in her office last night. Has said so far that she's fired 23 people. Her own staff says this is in addition to some other people who'd already left, perhaps as many as 15 lawyers. We don't have the specific list yet. Changeover is to be expected in these offices. I think some people are surprised by the abruptness and the lack of notice for the decisions that came last night. They came under heavy security in a corporate fashion. They included some firings of some attorneys who've handled state legal matters for a long time, a couple of decades in the case of one consumer protection, a lawyer. She, of course, has friends who work for her, lawyers who work for her. She's going to hire them. That's to be expected. We'll see if this cut into the bone of the state's depth of knowledge or not. I know the state argued a case today in the federal appeals court. I wonder if the lawyer that handled that case will be kept on in the future. Meanwhile, the lobbyists go about their business as usual. They're going to be throwing free drinks for legislators today. Arkansas State University, the Jonesboro Chamber of Commerce, and Bruce Hawkins, who's been involved in some pretty smelly political dealing, are providing free drinks that'll segue legislators between inaugural events today and various fundraisers such as Asa Hutchinson's inaugural ball and Asa Hutchinson's ball requires a ticket. It's not a fundraiser. It's paid for by corporate cash. Leslie Rutledge is holding a fundraiser at the Capitol Hotel to pay off her campaign debt, which is still over $100,000. So 60 cents of every dollar paid at her fundraiser is going to go to repay a loan she made to her own campaign to get elected. Ethics is on my mind. The Attorney General issued an opinion as he left office, that's Dustin McDaniel, that tries to square a couple of new constitutional amendments. One that gives the legislature power over state agency rules, the other that seems to give a state agency, the Ethics Commission, power to regulate ethical matters. He seems to square it to say, yes, the legislature can still set its own ethical rules. Not a very encouraging thing for those who don't think highly of legislative ethics. I mentioned a federal court case today. That would be the state defending the 12-week ban on abortion that was struck down by a federal judge in Little Rock. Oral arguments were held in St. Louis today before the 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. Judges seem skeptical about whether the Arkansas law is constitutional. It would be an overturning of 4 decades of precedent were it found to be legal. I doubt it's going to happen. Interesting lawsuit filed today in Helena. The local school district, which has been taken over by the state. A constituent there has filed a lawsuit over the decision the State Department of Education's man in charge there to sell a couple of vacant elementary schools to the KIPP Charter School for a song, $80,000 for I think 3 or 4 elementary schools, virtually a giveaway. They think that's an illegal exaction of taxpayer dollars. These schools were built by local taxpayers. This is amount to giving away expensive facilities to a competitor, the local school district. They don't like it. I think this could be a model for future state action in other school districts, and I think particularly of Little Rock if it's taken over by the state. And so the outcome of this case could be interesting. Speaking of schools, the Little Rock School Board tonight is going to have a special session on a proposal that their lawyer, Chris Heller, has come up with to try and find a middle ground and the current effort of the state perhaps to take over the school district. He has proposed a sort of halfway measure by which the state would have heavy influence on some academically distressed schools, but the school district would keep its independence. They're going to talk about that tonight. For interesting reading, I'd point you to our blog and a link that I provided to an article in the New Republic by David Ramsey, formerly the Arkansas Times staff. He noodles around with the idea of a presidential candidacy in 2016 by, wait for it, Tom Cotton, our brand new U.S. Senator. I say it's kind of like a horror movie. Look between your fingers and kind of peek at what you see there and see how you react. It's kind of scary. And another interesting item that we put on our blog yesterday, I'd urge you to take a look back at. It's a ProPublica investigation of the use of military-style grenades by police forces in raids, typically on drug raids and that sort of thing. The flashbang grenade, they're called. They're very dangerous. They can cause terrible injuries if they're not used properly. The article was interesting because it noticed the Little Rock Police Department is a heavy user of flashbang grenades in raids. They're used overwhelmingly in black neighborhoods, and they're often used for crimes that don't seem to merit that kind of technique. One woman who had a flashbang grenade used against her was guilty of the crime, if it be a crime, of selling some beer and hot dogs out of her house on a Sunday. They had to use a grenade to break that up. That's explosive news in my view. I'm Max Brantley, and I'll be back tomorrow.